Welcome to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and like always, I want to give a shout out to my biological family, what's going on, to the Universal African Peoples Organization family, what's up, and to the New Life Evangelistic family headed by Reverend Rice, keep up the great work, and our cameraman, Bill. On that note, this evening we'll have another great show, and in studio with me is a very young, vivacious, intelligent young lady.
Thank you.
Who's an anchor woman
Yes,
for NBC 17 based in Decatur, Illinois. Welcome to Conversations with Zaki
Thank
Baruti.
you for having me.
Well, you know, and we're going to be having a series of programs with you on, so this...
Looking forward to it.
Look forward to you being on our show. What I wanted to do was explore your path to becoming an anchor woman.
Absolutely.
But before we do that, you have a very interesting name. I said Ashonti Ford.
Ashonti Ford.
Ashonti, that's an African name.
It is an African name. It's a little bit more than that, though. It's an African tribe. There are a lot of meanings and phrases and words that go with my name, but the one that resonated most was Land of No Mercy. I took that as my own, but I love my name.
Oh, well,
it fits me well.
Right. Okay, then, great. On that note, being an anchor woman, how long have you been an anchor woman?
Well, this is my first official anchoring position. So I would say 2 months. But, you know, I've been in broadcast for about 5 years now. Okay,
well, let's talk about your process of becoming an anchor woman. What school did you go to?
San Francisco State. Go Gators. Love my campus. Love my school. There's some teachers there to this day that I really owe a lot of my process to. But I graduated with a broadcasting communications degree. But, you know, it's about much more than school. Everybody can go to school, but you have to have a focus. I was an intern for probably about 4.5 years. Before I actually accepted, my first reporting job, and it wasn't anchoring.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You got to climb up the ranks, you know. It definitely wasn't anchoring.
So, in your process of when you mentioned San Francisco State, it takes me back historically that there was a lot of student unrest there. Were you involved in student government or the Black student movement while on campus?
I was absolutely involved in the Black Student Union while on campus. Actually, Danny Glover came to our school probably when I was there about at least 6 times to talk to us about things that he had went through when he was our age and how we had to continue the movement even when there was nothing to move at our age. So I would say a lot of the unrest happened as I was graduating. As I was graduating from college, that's when the Oscar Grant and the Trayvon Martin cases kind of started to uproot themselves. And I definitely included myself in those movements.
And for our audience who may not be familiar, Oscar Grant was a young man who had been shot by a Bay Area transit officer, shot in the back, and the officer claimed that he thought it was a taser gun.
Well, something that's important with that to mention is he was not only shot in the back, he was shot in the back as his hands were handcuffed behind him.
Right.
So one could argue that he was of no threat. And then Trayvon Martin was the young man that went to the store for Skittles and an Arizona iced tea. And a man that was not a police officer ended up engaging with him. There was something that happened between the two of them that I guess only the two of them would know, and he didn't make it out of that situation.
So to that end, you were mentioning that you did some internship. Off air, we were talking about one of your exciting jobs as an intern.
Yes.
Who did you intern with, and explain that process?
Yeah, well, my first internship was with KGO ABC, and that's in San Francisco. And my second internship, which really gave me my love for investigative reporting, watchdog journalism, if you will, was with CBS Miami, their investigative unit there. I worked in their bureau. And one of my responsibilities out of the many was listening to George Zimmerman's jail calls, logging, which is typing up.
Wait a minute, you mean tell me you were actually listening to George Zimmerman?
Yes.
Okay, then that's very. I'm sure that had to have been very interesting.
it's funny because now looking back on it 5 years later, I'm like, wow, I was responsible for that. But as an intern that's just scared and just trying to make sure she does the right job, I didn't recognize what I was a part of at that time.
So in your listening to his conversations, what stands out most in terms of that experience?
Now or then?
Now and then.
Now that I was a part of a case that really rocked the nation. Now. Then that they would trust me with such a responsibility. I felt a sense of ownership for that case. But again, being from California and going to Florida to accept this internship to work on this, I was also torn. I kind of felt bad about leaving California and Oscar Grant, where I thought I could have been of use as well. So back then, torn, now appreciated. So
in your journey, in terms of your experiences toward becoming an anchor woman, what was the other, so you work with a couple other TV stations?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I interned for some years after that internship. I accepted my first news job in Maryland, and that was short-lived. I think I was there just for under a year. Not the best experience, but experience nonetheless. And then I accepted my second reporting job with a station in Wichita, Kansas. Probably the best experience I have had as of yet. And then
how long were you with the station in Wichita?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Yep. And now just freshly starting as an anchor/investigative reporter in Decatur.
Okay, then. On that note, we'll have our first break, and we'll be right back.
It's the gifts of caring people like you that help keep the Zaki Baruti Show on the air, dealing with hard issues that we must begin to recognize in our community, issues that are frequently ignored by much of the existing media. And St. Louis and the St. Louis area is a community that's famous for its Jim Crow policies of keeping the people down by elevating the rich and the powerful. I want to encourage you to get a copy of the book Through the Fire as you share your gift of $10 or more to help keep Zaki's program on the air and directly help the hurting and the homeless. This book goes into great detail of how the bigotry and the self-centeredness of the rich and powerful was implemented through the politicians to drive the homeless out of the area by shutting down the Work a New Life Evangelistic Center. But the work isn't shut down. It's moving forth in many other different locations. It's moved out on the streets among the people, and it's working to get back into 1411 Locust, all of which is made possible through the prayers and gifts of caring individuals like you. And that's why your gift is so very important at this time. And as you share that gift with New Life Evangelistic Center of $10 or more at P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri 63166, be sure you request your copy of Through the Fire. Yes, God is moving in a mighty way. New Life Evangelistic Center has not given up in spite of all the persecution. It's given it to God, and we're seeing Him now do exceedingly abundantly beyond what we can even ask or think. I ask you to continue to pray for us at the New Life Evangelistic Center as we're working to continue to bring you community programming like the Zaki Baruti Show and are out on the streets among the homeless, working among the homeless, distributing bus tickets every week and emergency supplies for them, opening up safe houses for the homeless women and children, expanding training programs for the homeless. All of it is possible because of each one of you that is sharing that much needed gift now with New Life Evangelistic Center. So when you send your gift of $10 or more, please request a copy of Through the Fire. It's P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 63166.
There on a hill, and I thank God.
Have circumstances turned your life upside down to the extent you are hungry for change, angry about the situation, lonely, tired? Then before you move ahead and make the wrong decision, you need to halt, pray, and let your faith be renewed by reading the Word. As 2 Peter 1 verses 3 and 4 says, His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Him who called us by His own glory and goodness. Through these scriptures, He's given us His grand and marvelous promises. Through them, you may drink in His divine nature and escape the desires and corruption of a sinful world. Call 314-421-3020. We'll pray with you today.
share the peace.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and in the studio with me is the lovely, vivacious, and intelligent anchor woman with NBC 17, based in Decatur, Illinois.
That's right.
On the other side of the conversation, before the break, we were just kind of getting a little background and some of your experiences. Now, you have most recently been hired. How long have you been with the present TV station?
NBC 17, just about 2 months, so still very new.
Now, before I get into some of your experiences, share with our audience, there may be many aspiring young people who are listening to the program, or parents that's listening, and may say, hey, I want my daughter or my son to go into broadcasting. Give them some of the ins and outs of what they should look for and should strive to accomplish.
Absolutely. Well, first I'll just say we need more people of color in the newsroom. So I'm just going to put that out there first and foremost. I would say consistency, and they have to want to do it. That person has to want to do it. It can't be someone pushing you towards it, because you'll fall off. It's so hard to get into the business. So I would say the first start would be college. And throughout college, internships at news stations, at actual news stations, with people that you want to be like, sitting with reporters, sitting with anchors, sitting with producers, sitting with assignment editors, and then applying and not being afraid to be told no. Do you know, before I got my first job, I probably sent out over 400 emails.
Wow.
Over 400 emails. And I only got 4 responses, and all 4 of them were no's. I tried for years to get into this business. It's hard to get in and even harder to stay in. So I would say school, internships, and not being afraid of no.
So having broke that ceiling in terms of actually getting into the business, what have been some of the pitfalls or the struggles while being a broadcaster?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just speak from my experience now, because when you first start anything, it's going to be rough. So I'll just talk from my experience now. As an African-American woman in any profession, when you are a minority, sometimes you're also a threat. Sometimes people are also intimidated by you. Me saying, hey, so-and-so, what is this deadline? I need this done by the deadline. Sounds a lot different coming from me than it might coming from someone else. So just being comfortable with who I am is hard sometimes in this industry, because we're felt like we're overly aggressive and that we're intimidating, so it can be hard to get comfortable. And I would say my hair, funny enough. Now, I love my hair. I personally think I'm popping.
Well, you preempt one of my questions, but go ahead. And that's interesting, because your hair is beautiful and what have you.
Thank you.
But it's not.
It's not the usual news anchor look. Though we do have some beautiful sisters and people of other races that are rocking short hair and doing it lovely, but this is not the norm.
Right.
The norm is the straight situation, very neat, very straight, feminine. And so once I was in the industry and I was trying to move up within the industry, I ran into a lot of situations where news directors were telling me that my hair wasn't professional, that I didn't look feminine. I can't tell you how many news directors told me that I did not look feminine. I did not look feminine. I did not look feminine.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get over it. Like, what you say to me? I don't look feminine because I don't have long hair. You know what I mean? I could go buy some of that. You know what I mean? But beyond that, what does my hair have to do with my journalism? What does my hair have to do with the years that I have invested in journalism before I even received a paycheck? Those 4 or 5 years of interning were unpaid. So to be at this level that I'm at, that many years interning, and then an additional amount of years in radio and broadcast and all these things, to be at this point of my career and still be told no because of my hair is hard.
So I guess that has to speak in terms of something, the strength that you have to have in that industry then.
Absolutely. And this is for men, women, black, white, Latino, Asian. You have to have tough skin in this industry.
Now,
period.
Are you...
some of the viewer emails that we get, news reporters and anchors, would just make you cringe. You have to have tough skin in this industry.
Okay, so you get a lot of... by being projected as the beauty that I see you, but others may not. So you get a lot of emails that's to the contrary sometimes?
Well, it's not so much the viewer emails that bother me about that, because they're not signing my check. But it is the, no, you can't have this opportunity that you want unless you wear a wig, that has kind of hit me hard.
So one last question along that line, in terms of the overall industry and black people being part of the industry. Are you aware of any statistics as it relates to the total number of anchor people and the percentage of blacks in the industry?
I wish that I would have gotten an exact number together for you. I'm sure I could have done that, but I will tell you, I am typically the only black talent in my station. Now, my last station, they're very diverse at KSN News, very diverse. Men, women of all races.
You're talking about the present station?
The previous one.
The previous
and I will say this station now, too, is pretty diverse. But I will say, out of all the stations that I've been in, usually I am one of the only black people, period. Mm-hmm. There might be one other or two other in the entire building. I'm talking about sales. I'm talking about behind the scenes. I'm talking about in front of the camera. They're just 20%.
Okay, then. So on that note, we'll have to take another quick break, and then we'll be right back.
If you can't receive NLEC TV on channel 24.2 on your TV, you can watch us on your home computer or laptop, anywhere in the world. Simply type in NLEC TV, then select NLEC TV support and click on the small NLEC TV on the right of the menu bar. Click on the play indicator to start the live programming, the same programming as 24.2. You can then enlarge the picture and enjoy your favorite programs like the NLEC Worship with Larry Rice, The Bernie Hayes Show, Experience the Benefits of Change with Pastor Burris, Conversations with Zaki Baruti, News and Views, and so much more.
Can you hear the music of creation?
NLEC TV is also available on all mobile devices such as smartphones and iPads. By getting the NLEC TV app, you can enjoy NLEC TV anywhere you go.
I want to thank God for each and every one of you that are supporting NLEC TV, the work of the New Life Evangelistic Center, and making it all possible so we can have conversations with Zaki on the air along with the other programming that's on NLEC TV. Not only we discover that at 24.2, but I actually watch it on my cell phone at a very special app that we have of NLEC TV, and you can just pull it up. It's so easy that everybody can watch it anywhere. So wherever I travel, I can be watching this program and other programs. Now, all this is possible only because of caring people like you that are sharing those much-needed tax-deductible gifts at this time with the New Life Evangelistic Center. We have a lot of things that are unfolding at this moment. We're continuing to help multitudes of people, not only throughout Mid-America, but as far away as India and Africa and other locations around the world. And we really do need your help. After they closed down 1411 Locust, we're continuing to help the homeless directly out on the streets every week. We're out in the mayor's window distributing bus tickets and other direct supplies. We have regular events out in front of 1411 Locust, and we're working actually through the legal, the mediation, the advocacy, and getting prayer warriors to pray that we can reopen 1411 Locust in the near future. But we need your involvement at this particular moment. And your gifts to the New Life Evangelistic Center make such a big difference. You can send that to P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri, that's 63166, or you can give online through the PayPal system at newlifeevangelisticcenter.org or NLEC STL. I ask you to continue to stand with us right now as we continue to bring many programs like Conversation with Zaki to you, but we need your help.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti. In studio with me is Miss Ashonti Ford, anchor woman at NBC 17 in Decatur, Illinois. And you've been on this particular position for 2 months, you said?
2 months, yes.
Okay,
this position, yes.
So, as a anchor woman, do you ever go out on assignment out into the community?
Absolutely. So I anchor the weekend newscast. So that's 4 newscasts a week, but it's just on Saturday and Sunday. I'll fill in anchoring during the week, but during the week, for the most part, I'm out in the community still. I have my camera, I have my tripod. When I met you for the Martin Luther King March, I was out there on my own, one-man band in it. So definitely still very much out in the community.
Since you mentioned Dr. King, what do you see as the significance of Dr. King and the movement that he led for so many years?
I think that in this time, if we're talking about education, I think Dr. King should be a catalyst conversation for many other African Americans that played a role during that time. I think when I was in school, and I guess I can't speak for the kids today, but when I was in school, Dr. King was the beginning, the middle, and the end, which is okay because there's so much to say about him. But I would love for him to be a conversation starter for education these days because there's just so many African Americans that have blazed a trail.
Absolutely. Now, as an anchor woman, I'm sure you've come across different kinds of major stories. In Decatur, and Decatur in my mind is a small community. Have you come across any kind of major stories that you'd like to share with us?
Well, you know, I'm still very fresh there, so I haven't really been able to do enough research on some of my stories, but I can speak for stories in general that I've covered. The first one that pops up in my head is the Dockham sit-ins. Now, shortly before the Civil Rights Movement, there were small groups, adults and students, that were sitting in restaurants refusing to leave until they were served, all white establishments.
You're talking about during the 60s. The sit-in was doing that. Okay.
Yes, I am. The first one, the first student-led sit-in, a lot of people think it happened in Greensboro. It happened in Wichita, Kansas. And not only did I cover that story in depth, I got to meet some of the original people who sat in. One woman actually,
So let's be clear. You're not talking about at that time period because she was too young at that time period. You're talking about reflections of that time period.
Yes.
Okay. Then.
Reflections of that time period.
Okay.
I don't know if I would have made it out of that time. So no, I'm talking about now.
Okay. Then. And so you interviewed some of the
original participants.
Okay,
yeah.
then.
And it was very fulfilling for me to be able to sit across from someone who, when they were my age, did so much more than what I'm doing right now. You know, like this generation, I'm, I guess, a little bit on the older side of a millennial, but we feel like we don't have to raise our voices. We don't take on the same responsibility as the Dockham participants did back then, and like many other people back then took on. So it was really fulfilling for me to be able to interview someone who did so much, you know, and it kind of helped me to be like, well, where are you at in your life? You know, you need to stand up a little bit taller, you know. So that was probably one of the most impactful stories that I've done.
Any other stories you'd like to share?
I've done a lot of work on child abuse. Unfortunately, there's a lot of it in Kansas. There's a lot of it nationwide. And that's always been something that I have stood behind, child abuse awareness. And I covered one story. I won't get too much into the details of it. But a child was severely abused and then killed. And I helped this family that felt they may not have had a voice to have one. And eventually they did seek justice. The gentleman that was the cause of it, I think he was convicted to over 100 years in prison. So it's nice when you can follow a story from the beginning to the end and see someone brought to justice.
Now, early on, you were mentioning in terms of the millenniums and trailblazers. Do you see yourself as a trailblazer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. I think in 15 years from now, I'll be able to tell you what trail I'm blazing. I know I'm blazing. I don't know what trail it is on right now, but I know that I'm not afraid.
And what do you see as the responsibility of people in the broadcast industry or any journalistic industry to our community, the Black community in particular?
I think it's a journalist's responsibility to the community to be honest, do research, and be authentic.
Okay, then. On that note, we're going to get ready to take another last break.
These breaks just keep rolling in, don't they? All right.
Moving too fast for me.
Hear this, you who trample the needy and do away with the poor of the land. Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. You trample on the poor and force him to give you grain. Therefore, though you have built stone mansions, you will not live in them. Though you have planted lush vineyards, you will not drink their wine. For I know how many are your offenses and how great your sins. You oppress the righteous and take bribes, and you deprive the poor of justice in the courts. Seek good, not evil, that you may live. Then the Lord God Almighty will be with you, just as you say He is. Hate evil, love good.
Hello, I'm Larry Rice, and I'm inviting you to join me daily on the New Life Facebook page. Something new, something exciting every day. So go to facebook.com/New Life STL and discover what's happening on a daily basis as New Life Evangelistic Center begins to share with you a wide variety of subjects. I look forward to visiting you on the Facebook page. Remember, there's so much just waiting for you at that particular page.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and we only have a couple minutes left with Miss Ashonti Ford. This has been just a fast-moving half hour. On that note, for anybody who, who are listening, the thousands of people who are listening, and there are those who may want their children, as I had mentioned earlier, to be interested in going into broadcast, or may want to reach out for you to come and speak at some program.
Absolutely.
Especially in that we're in the month of Black History Month. How would people, are you accessible in terms of?
I am extremely accessible. I love Facebook, so Facebook would be the first go-to. Ashonti Ford, it's spelled ASHONTIFORD. If you have Instagram or Twitter, at Ashonti Ford Live. And if you'd like to email me, you want to do something a little bit longer, I will give you my work email, which is my first name, ASHONTI dot last name Ford, FORD, at WANDTV.com.
On that note, in terms of role models for you in this industry, who would be a couple of role models for you in this industry?
You know, that's always a hard one because I just have so many. That's a hard one.
Okay.
I don't want to plead the fifth, but I'm still in my Maya Angelou days.
Okay, Maya Angelou. Okay.
My Toni Morrisons, my Oprah Winfrey's, of course. That's a hard one. I just have so many. Anybody who is unapologetic about the work that they do, they are a role model to me.
And in terms of future aspirations for Ashonti Ford, what would you, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, where would you like to be?
I hope that I am grooming my children into collegehood while writing books.
Okay, so when are you going to start on writing a book?
Well, you know, I actually already have a rough draft of a book.
Oh, is that right?
I do.
Okay.
It's titled Baby Bird, and it's around the theory that if a baby bird falls from its mother's nest and gets life sent on it, the mom no longer recognizes it. So I'm actually working on a book now.
Oh, okay then. And when is the projected
Don't
release?
push it, Zaki.
I'm pushing it. Well, we don't have to be pushing you. You know, we have to push young talent in our community such as you. You know, it's been a real pleasure. Do you have any lasting comments that you'd like to share with the audience in terms of words of wisdom?
I just appreciate being here. Thank you for having me and giving me this platform. And for those watching, especially the youth, I would say, if your dreams don't scare you, they may not be big enough.
I know that's right. On that note, you've been listening to Conversations with Zaki Baruti with the lovely Ashonti Ford. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.